My beloved child, stop scrolling and listen closely, because the 10 seconds in this message are not counting down to your rejection, they are counting down to a revelation you have misunderstood for far too long. Archangel Michael is calling with an urgency that seems to shake the silence around you, not because heaven is preparing to erase your name, but because something inside you has been slowly convincing you that you were forgotten. Stay with me. Don't look away now. The words you are about to hear turn the entire meaning of this message upside down. You saw the title and thought this was about losing God's hand, but the first mystery is this: what if the hand was never moving away from you? What if you were simply walking through a season so quiet that you could no longer feel what was still holding you? 10. And suddenly the image appears, a hand reaching through a curtain of brilliant light. 9. A closed door stands before you. 8. There is a name written beyond that door. 7. You recognize that name as your own. 6. The silence becomes deeper. 5. Something you carried for years begins to make sense. 4. You realize the door was never locked from heaven's side. 3. The fear that whispered, "You have been forgotten," begins losing its power. 2. The light becomes stronger. 1. And instead of your name disappearing, another word appears beside it: remembered. Stay with me, because this is where the story begins. That is the first emotional twist, and it changes everything. The message was never truly about heaven abandoning you. It was about exposing the belief that made you feel abandoned. There were moments when you wondered why certain things became strangely quiet. You expected an answer, yet silence came. You expected movement, yet everything seemed still. You thought a certain opportunity would open quickly, yet it remained beyond your reach. You watched other people enter seasons you had been hoping for while your own life seemed to remain on the same page. And somewhere inside that waiting, a question formed: have I been overlooked? Don't skip. That question is connected to the symbol Michael is revealing now. Imagine an enormous book resting beneath a beam of golden light. Its pages are turning, one after another, and every page represents a season. The season when you were confident, the season when you questioned everything, the season when you nearly stopped expecting anything beautiful, the season when you smiled around others while quietly wondering when your own answer would arrive. Then the pages stop. Your name is there. It has not been erased. It has not disappeared. It has not been forgotten. But beside it is an unfinished line, and this is where the mystery deepens. The unfinished line represents something in your story that has not reached its conclusion. What looked final was only incomplete. What looked like a closed chapter may have been a pause between sentences. What looked like heaven's silence may have been a space in which your heart was being prepared to recognize something you would have missed before. Your answer is closer than you think. Stay till the end, because the meaning of that unfinished line becomes much clearer when you understand the second symbol. Michael stands beside a doorway, but instead of opening it immediately, he points toward your hands. At first they appear empty. You wonder why he would point there when you have been asking for something to arrive. Then suddenly you notice something tiny resting in your palm, a key. And the shocking part is that the key has been there longer than you realized. This is spiritual symbolism for the strength, wisdom, patience, discernment, courage, or clarity that may already be developing within you while you keep looking outside yourself for evidence that something is changing. Something huge is waiting for you, but huge does not always arrive with noise. Sometimes the biggest transformation begins so quietly that you only recognize it after you have already become different. Think about the version of you who entered this difficult season. Think about what disturbed you then, what controlled your attention, what made you question yourself, what you tolerated because you feared losing people, and what you chased because you thought receiving it would prove your worth. Now look again. Something has shifted. Perhaps only slightly, but enough to matter. You have begun seeing what you once ignored. You have started recognizing patterns you once excused. You have become more careful about where you place your energy. You have learned that every closed door does not deserve to be forced open. You have discovered that silence can reveal intentions that noise concealed. And now Michael's message becomes clearer: do not confuse transformation with abandonment. Don't look away now. What comes next changes everything. The 10-second countdown was not heaven counting down your worth. It symbolized the final moments of an old belief. The belief that you must constantly receive signs, attention, approval, or immediate answers to know that you still matter. 10 represents the moment before understanding. 9 represents the questions you carried. 8 represents the doors you tried to reopen. 7 represents the lessons hidden inside delay. 6 represents the voices you needed to stop allowing into your inner world. 5 represents the courage you discovered when nobody applauded. 4 represents the foundations being rebuilt beneath your life. 3 represents the choice between fear and trust. 2 represents you standing between who you were and who you are becoming. And 1 represents the moment you finally understand that your name was never disappearing. The thing being erased was the lie that told you your story had ended. There is another reason this message feels unusually close to you, and you need to hear this part without rushing past it. Stay with me. Somewhere along your journey, you may have connected God's presence only with visible outcomes. When things moved quickly, you felt supported. When doors opened, you felt guided. When people understood you, you felt seen. When circumstances aligned, you felt certain. But then came a chapter where the evidence became harder to recognize. That chapter tested something deeper than your patience. It challenged the way you interpreted silence. Don't skip, because here comes the second revelation. Michael is not pointing toward what disappeared, he is pointing toward what remained. When plans changed, something remained. When someone misunderstood you, something remained. When an expectation did not unfold the way you imagined, something remained. When you questioned your direction, something remained. You remained. Your capacity to begin again remained. Your ability to learn remained. Your heart's ability to hope remained, even when that hope became quiet. And perhaps the greatest mystery is that you survived moments you once believed would permanently change you for the worse, yet somehow those moments also taught you what deserves access to your future. This is where the story begins, not with everything becoming perfect, but with your interpretation changing. Picture another spiritual symbol, a massive tree standing alone beneath a dark night sky. Above the ground, nothing seems to be happening. There are no new leaves. There are no flowers. There is no visible fruit. Someone looking at the tree might assume that its greatest days are behind it. But beneath the soil, where nobody can applaud and nobody can observe, the roots are traveling deeper. They are searching for water. They are strengthening themselves for a season the branches cannot yet see. That tree represents the hidden part of your journey. You kept asking why nothing visible was happening while something foundational was taking place beneath the surface. Don't look away now. What comes next changes everything. A storm appears in the distance, and suddenly the purpose of those deeper roots becomes obvious. The tree was not being denied growth. It was being given depth before exposure. Without the deeper roots, the next season would have looked impressive but would not have lasted. Your answer is closer than you think. There may be something similar happening in your own story. You have been measuring progress through visible evidence, while some of your most important progress has been invisible. You became more discerning. You learned where your boundaries needed to exist. You became less willing to trade peace for temporary approval. You discovered that being chosen by everyone is not the same thing as being aligned with what is right for you. You started understanding that certain delays can prevent rushed decisions. You learned that unanswered questions do not automatically mean you are unloved. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you in the final revelation. Before that revelation can arrive, however, there is a mirror you must see. Michael turns from the tree and walks toward a still pool of water. The surface is perfectly calm. He points downward, and you expect to see something mysterious beneath it, but instead you see your own reflection. Yet the reflection is different. It is you without the exhaustion of trying to prove yourself. It is you without constantly checking whether someone has noticed your effort. It is you without measuring your future by yesterday's disappointment. It is you standing peacefully in the knowledge that not every unanswered question needs to become a fear. And then the water moves. One circle spreads outward, then another, then another. A single drop created all of them. That is the next symbol. One internal change can reshape countless external decisions. When you stop believing that you have been forgotten, you stop chasing what repeatedly makes you feel invisible. When you stop believing that every delay is rejection, you become patient enough to distinguish between something that needs time and something that needs to be released. When you stop believing that your worth depends upon immediate outcomes, you begin making choices from clarity instead of panic. Stay with me. This is not a message asking you to fear heaven. It is a message asking you to release the fear that heaven has forgotten you. That distinction is everything. And now the title begins revealing its hidden meaning. You are about to lose God's hand. What if what you were actually about to lose was your awareness of that hand because disappointment had become louder than faith? What if the urgency is not believe within 10 seconds or you disappear, but do not allow another moment of fear to convince you that your name has disappeared? The emotional twist is enormous because the thing you feared losing may be the very thing that has quietly carried you through every chapter. Think carefully. There were moments when you did not know what your next move would be, yet eventually another step appeared. There were days when you felt drained, yet somehow you reached the next morning. There were situations you desperately wanted to preserve that later revealed why they could not remain unchanged. There were answers you demanded immediately that made more sense only after time passed. Something huge is waiting for you. Not necessarily an instant event, not a magical guarantee, but a realization powerful enough to change how you enter whatever comes next. Michael raises his hand again, and behind him you see 3 doors. The first is labeled, "What you lost." The second is labeled, "What you learned." The third has no label at all. Naturally, you stare at the third door. Why is nothing written there? Because that door represents what has not yet been defined. Your future is not required to repeat your past. Stay with me. The first door contains memories. The second contains wisdom. But the third contains possibility. And the key you saw earlier, the one already resting in your hand, fits only the third door. That means the past can teach you, but it does not own the key to what comes next. Don't skip. This is the moment where many people mentally return to the first door because familiarity feels safer than uncertainty. They reopen old conversations in their minds. They replay what somebody should have said. They imagine different endings. They ask whether changing one decision would have changed everything. But Michael does not walk backward. He remains beside the unnamed door because heaven's symbolism is pointing toward movement. Not rushed movement. Not fearful movement. Intentional movement. The unnamed door is waiting for the version of you who no longer needs every detail written in advance before taking the next faithful step. Now something extraordinary happens. The light behind the third door begins slipping through the edges, but the door still does not open. Stay with me. Don't look away now. The suspense is not about whether your name exists beyond it. You already saw that your name remained. The mystery is why the door is waiting. Michael looks toward the key in your hand, and suddenly you understand that there is one final thing you must leave outside before entering, the belief that every setback predicts the future. What comes next changes everything. You cannot walk freely into a new chapter while constantly asking the old chapter for permission. You cannot recognize a new opportunity if your attention is permanently fixed on something that already taught you its lesson. You cannot experience peace while treating uncertainty as proof that something terrible is around the corner. This is where the story begins. The third door does not represent a guaranteed fortune, an instant miracle, or a specific person suddenly returning. Its meaning is deeper. It represents the future becoming open again inside your mind and heart. That may sound quiet, but it can alter everything because before external change becomes meaningful, you must be able to recognize it without forcing it to resemble what you expected. Your answer is closer than you think. The key begins glowing, and carved into it are two words: move forward. Those words are not demanding that you forget what happened. They are reminding you that remembering and remaining are different things. You can remember a lesson without living inside the moment that taught it. You can appreciate someone without making them responsible for your identity. You can acknowledge disappointment without allowing it to become prophecy. You can admit that something hurt without deciding that every future experience will hurt the same way. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because the final image changes the entire countdown. The numbers appear again. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But this time they are not disappearing. They are becoming steps. 10 becomes the first stair beneath your feet. 9 becomes another. 8 becomes another. Each number that looked like a countdown is actually building a staircase. Suddenly the symbolism is unmistakable. What you interpreted as an ending was creating a path upward. The 10 seconds were never 10 seconds until rejection. They were 10 symbolic steps from fear toward understanding. The message that seemed to say, "Heaven will erase your name," transforms completely, because at the top of the staircase is the same enormous book you saw at the beginning. It opens again. The pages turn. Your name appears again, exactly where it was before. But now the unfinished line beside it begins receiving words, not a prediction of some guaranteed event, but a message about the choice standing before you. The next chapter begins when fear stops writing the ending. Stay with me. That sentence is the once-in-a-lifetime revelation hidden inside the entire message. Fear has been trying to finish stories that life has not finished yet. Fear looked at silence and wrote, "Forgotten." Fear looked at delay and wrote, "Never." Fear looked at one disappointment and wrote, "Always." Fear looked at uncertainty and wrote, "Something is wrong." Fear looked at a closed door and wrote, "Nothing else will open." But those endings were never written in the book. They were interpretations created during difficult moments. Don't look away now. Michael reaches toward the page, not to erase your name, but to wipe away those false endings. Forgotten disappears. Never disappears. Too late disappears. Not enough disappears. And your name remains. What comes next changes everything because the hand you thought you were losing becomes the symbol guiding you toward the staircase. You were looking upward asking, "Why are you letting go?" while the deeper message was asking, "Why have you decided that silence means you are no longer being held?" Something huge is waiting for you in that question. Perhaps the breakthrough you need first is not an external event. Perhaps it is freedom from the exhausting belief that every quiet season means something has gone wrong. Perhaps it is the realization that you do not need to live frightened of being erased, forgotten, replaced, or left behind. Perhaps your next chapter begins with standing differently inside the life you already have. The staircase continues upward, and at its highest point there is no throne, no treasure chest, no dramatic object waiting to prove your importance. There is a sunrise. That is the final symbol for now. A sunrise does not argue with the darkness. It simply arrives, gradually revealing what the darkness made impossible to see. First comes a thin line of light. Then shapes become visible. Then colors return. Then the horizon that seemed empty reveals an entire landscape. Your life can work like that. Understanding often arrives gradually. Direction can appear one step at a time. Healing can happen so quietly that you notice it only when something that once controlled your emotions no longer has the same power. Don't skip this final moment. The sunrise reaches the book, touches your written name, crosses the staircase, and illuminates the key still resting in your hand. Everything connects. The book means your story is unfinished. The key means you still possess the ability to choose your next step, the staircase means what looked like a countdown can become movement, and the sunrise means darkness never had enough information to tell you what the morning would look like. Stay with me. The greatest surprise is that Michael's urgent cry was never meant to make you terrified of losing God's hand. It was meant to wake you before fear made you forget how much strength had already carried you here. The countdown has ended, yet you are still here. Your name remains. The door remains. The key remains. The sunrise remains. And now the third door finally begins to open. A narrow beam of light crosses the floor. Something is visible on the other side, but only its outline can be seen. It is connected to the unfinished sentence beside your name, connected to the season you thought was empty, and connected to the reason certain doors could not follow you into what comes next. Your answer is closer than you think. Stay till the end of this journey, because the moment that doorway opens completely, the meaning of everything you thought you lost is about to look completely different.